some members of the media were there to witness the arraignment firsthand. I was fortunate to be one of the reporters sitting behind the former president and the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. Our first guest was there as well for this unprecedented event, managing editor for Law and Crime, Adam Klasfeld. And Adam joins us now live. Adam, welcome to Picks on Politics.
Thank you for having me.
So Adam, to me, this was really a surreal sort of event in Judge Juan Merchan's courtroom. The court officers flanked shoulder to shoulder. We went through double security. What stood out to you about this kind of wild experience?
Well, as you mentioned, heightened security. I think it was upwards of 38,000 officers. It was the security it was just when we were outside. Do you remember the experience?
Yeah.
There was an
overnight camp out a la a concert just to get in the courtroom.
Absolutely. And of course, you had the protesters and the counter-protesters, 2 security screenings, and the buzz of helicopters overhead, the barricades separating those protesters from the building in a line of officers. They weren't taking any chances.
I remember leaning forward at one point to get a better look at the former president and a court officer telling me, sit back. I mean, I do not exaggerate when I say the motion was about that wide. I mean, There was not a lot of movement.
Absolutely. Now, I've covered court cases in Guantanamo Bay. I've covered court cases in a military courtroom for the Chelsea Manning court-martial. It's the sort of experience where they leave nothing to chance.
So let's talk about some interesting moments. And I think perhaps for me, one of the more interesting moments was when Mr. Trump's legal team was trying to defend some of the language the former president used leading up to this, such as World War III and death and destruction if he'd be indicted as a First Amendment matter. The judge cut that argument off, which I thought was very striking. Talk about that and how we think the former president's words will play out outside the courtroom will play out during this trial.
Right. Well, there was also a very striking way that his attorney, Todd Blanche, described it. He said the president has spoken forcefully. Well, it was more than forcefully. And you saw the assistant district attorney, Mr. Conway, going up with a stack of papers of his Truth Social posts, including a picture of Alvin Bragg and him side by side and former President Trump holding a baseball bat.
That was embedded in a news article and was deleted by the former president.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that stack of papers was submitted to the judge, and the judge, it provides a window into why he reacted that way. But I also found it striking that the judge said flat out that we are far away from talking about anything like a gag order.
And that brings me to one of the next points I was going to make. So he said that. I think he said, used the words, that he was crystal clear, or the First Amendment applied doubly because you're running for president. So the judge makes that very clear. And then Mr. Trump goes back to Florida, gives his press conference, and goes after the judge's wife and daughter.
Absolutely.
I mean, the judge says he doesn't want to do a gag order. Is he going to have any choice here?
We'll see how this plays out because, as you noted, Henry, the former president is really pushing the line here. And it raises a question of, does he want to make this, does the former president want to make this a First Amendment issue? Does he want to change the conversation? Because any gag order that would be considered, let alone ordered, would be challenged, and it would turn this into a case about hush money payments and a case about whatever alleged campaign finance violations, potentially tax issues, to a First Amendment issue. And that's where the former president wants to be.
The arraignment overall was very long. These are the sorts of proceedings that typically take 15, 20 minutes. Am I right about that? So
absolutely. Very
long, 15th floor, no air conditioning, old courtroom. I was sweating a little by the end of it. The former president was sweating a little by the end of it, and he was angry. Is this going to be typical, that things are going to be a little more drawn out because of everything around this? Or do you expect this to be the sort of circus that it was every single time we have a hearing or a motion in this case?
Well, it's one thing that lends to the latter possibility is the fact that so much happens in between the hearings. It is seemingly quite possible that former President Trump's speech at Mar-a-Lago that night attacking the judge's family will be mentioned. It's quite possible that everything else that has transpired since that hearing, whether it is news about political donations, all of this will be briefed. We will probably see unusual hearings that are generally pretty short, be extended by what happens, the antics outside the courtroom.
And the judge made clear he wants the former president there for everything. Mr. Trump's lawyers tried to say maybe he doesn't need to be here for everything. The judge wasn't having it.
And that was absolutely striking because, as we mentioned earlier, he was being very accommodating on the gag order. Not on that point. He informed the former president of the right to be present, and he made it pretty clear he wants Trump to be present.
Got about a minute or so left here. I want to end with a final point. It was interesting to be in the courtroom from the perspective of we, for about an hour, had information the entire world wanted about the fate of a former American president and his criminal fate and the path forward. The reason we had that information and everyone didn't have that information was because of a very strict electronics ban. The court officers, you'll remember, wanted to see our off phones before we went in and then didn't even want to see the phones outside of our pockets, even though they were off. Is that going to change moving forward? There was some discussion of maybe laptops to at least report things in more real time.
Absolutely. The judge seemed like he was very amenable to reconsidering the no electronics rule because this is how things get reported these days, in real time. The public wants to know about the biggest criminal case in U.S. history of this nature. They want to know it as soon as possible. So I think the judge is aware of it. Certainly attorneys for news organizations are advocating for it. And I think we may find the judge more accommodating going ahead.
Well, I guess we'll find out December 4th. My son's birthday, by the way. I think I'm going to be a little bit busy that day. Adam, thanks for coming on Picks on Politics. It was great to see you.